We all love a hero in life. Why not get yourself a nice hero running back this summer? You guys showed a ton of support on our Zero RB video, so now it's time to break down Zero RB's slightly more attractive cousin, the hero running back strategy. This will be your one-stop shop for everything Hero RB. Let us know in the comments what you think of this breakdown. Leave a like while you're down there. Subscribe to the channel if this is your first time checking us out. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, like Corey kind of said in that intro, a lot of people are just so against the zero RB strategy. Hopefully today, the running back lovers in the comment section will at least love the attempt at trying to get a running back early in our drafts. But with that being said, before we get into the strategy, as always, you know what we got to do. So for the structure of today's video, we will be defining Hero RB and how it can be effective in your guys' fantasy drafts, what the RB dead zone is, when you guys should be applying the Hero RB draft strategy, how scoring format can affect Hero RB effectiveness in terms of the draft strategy as a whole, and then finally being able to demonstrate how it can be effectively done through a mock draft at the end of the video.
Yeah, similar to what we did in the Zero RB video, it's going to be the same kind of structure. We'll, parse through and skim through parts that we talked about in the Zero RB video. But for those of you guys that are new around here and have no idea what the hell we're talking about when we say Hero RB is a modification to the Zero RB draft strategy, the Zero RB draft strategy where you draft 0 running backs before round 7 and 8. In Hero RB, what you're doing differently is that you're drafting 1 running back. You're drafting an anchor running back, a guy that can be the sole swing at a legendary upside season, as Danny's going to break down. The thesis of a Hero RB is that you are stronger at every other position than your league mates. You draft, multiple wide receivers through the flex. So if you can start up to 4 wide receivers, meaning a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex spot league, you want to draft at least 4 wide receivers through the first 7 rounds and probably 5 or 6 through the first 10 rounds. Obviously, you want to go after an elite onesie if you can possibly do it, make those deviations along the way for a quarterback and or an elite tight end.
Yeah, and in a Zero RB, you're looking to treat both your running back 1 and running back 2 spots as the weakest spots on your roster, devoting all of your waiver budget and late round picks to those 2 running back positions. But in a hero running back, it's just mostly your running back 2 position that is the weakest on your roster. You're cycling through, late round picks, waiver odds, any type of, easy, fixable type of production to be able to supplement that position. But overall, I mean, the strategies are pretty similar as a whole, as we'll get into. But of course, with the hero RB, you're only worried about the RB2 slot versus, like we said, with the zero RB, you're worried about both spots. And in fantasy, we know that running back 2 production for the most part is the most easily replaceable production through opportunity. Adding guys like, Eno Benjamin in the past, Jeff Wilson in the past. We saw a couple years ago, Elijah Mitchell was the big ticket waiver wire ad in week 2. We see these guys emerge year in and year out because at the end of the day, running back, like we said in the Zero RB video, running back is an opportunity-based position. A lot of inferior talents on the surface can suffice as your running back 2 on any given week because, again, if they're getting 20 opportunities, they will most likely hit there. Whereas the wide receiver position, mostly based around talent, you can earn snaps, but realistically, if you can't earn targets, you're not going to be valuable in fantasy. So prioritizing this information is why we are so selective when we're drafting our running back position. And the ideal roster constructions that we have for a Hero RB is that you're drafting your Hero RB within rounds 1 or 2. You want to build at least 5 or 6 wide receivers, a quarterback, an elite tight end through those first 10 rounds and taking shots on guys like handcuffs. Elijah Mitchell this year, Alexander Madison of the years past, Tony Pollard prior to this past year before Ezekiel Elliott left. You want to target these profiles, these ambiguous backfields, these clear, handcuff type of players because you want that upside where, hey, my wide receivers, my tight end, and my quarterback are already going to carry. If I hit on a running back and then am able to supplant RB2 production later in the draft, my team will have virtually no flaws.
Yeah, and at worst case scenario, you just churn the waiver wire and continue to find those shots, those Eno Benjamins, Jeff Wilsons, Raheem Mosterts of last year. The reason we want to be light on the running back position and just draft 1 through the first 8 to 10 rounds, regardless of what strategy we're deploying, but in specifically this video, we're talking Hero RB, is because they do get injured and they bust at a higher rate. You guys can see a couple charts on the screen right now. The average games missed of top 20 running backs in ADP since the year 2015 is over 3 games per season. And also serious injury injury chances, meaning an injury that lasts 6 or more games, 19%. Nearly 20% of the time you're getting a running back that is going to have a serious injury versus the wide receiver position. They miss on average 1.8 per season and a 12.5% serious injury chance. And yesterday's video, if you guys watched it, dissecting the 160 running backs that I broke down, top 20 ADP running backs since 2015. If you guys can see the chart on the screen right now, I broke down my early running back draft strategy, but essentially what this strategy boils down to is in this last column here. If you guys can see the all running backs column, only 38.75% of the time that you draft a top 20 running back in ADP, are you getting somebody that returned on ADP or boomed and gave you a huge, legendary upside season. Either the running back got injured almost 20% of the time. They busted hard by losing 10 or more spots of ADP 21.25% of the time. Or they just didn't kill you. They were fine, but they weren't really giving you any kind of advantage at that position 24.38% of the time. In either case, we don't want to be overweight on running backs, knowing that if you add all those percentages together, nearly 2/3 of the time, they were a net liability for your fantasy team. And by the way, there was no overlap. Some of you guys commented down below like, hey, if they got injured, they probably also counted as a bust. There was no overlap. They got injured at 20% of the time, almost killed you at 21.25% of the time, and then we're just fine at 24% of the time. Again, that's like 2/3 of the time that you draft an early round running back, they're not going to hit to the level that you need them to hit at. And that's why the hero RB and zero RB and all these light at running back strategies were implemented in the first place.
The other major component of hero running back is bypassing the running back dead zone. And you actually tweeted recently, but since 2017, the hit rates by position in the mid-round / RB dead zone, according to RotoViz, are running backs 33.76%, wide receivers 46.97%, quarterbacks 45.45%, and tight ends 41.46%. We already know why it's caused by tight ends, because outside of, your Travis Kelce's, your Mark Andrews on any given year, the tight end position for the most part between tight end 4 and tight end 13 is virtually pretty much the same. But when it comes to quarterbacks and wide receivers, you are basically hitting at a near 50% rate. Running backs, you're hitting at closer to a 1 1/3 rate. So just from a mathematical standpoint, it makes sense to draft your wide receivers. It makes sense to draft an elite quarterback, given the advantage, given the elite point per game upside that they have, and given the overall complexion of the position. I think new fantasy players sometimes hear these strategies, don't really know, and then you just start drafting running backs. Hero doesn't mean drafting one anchor in round 1 and not drafting a running back till round 5 and then drafting 3 in a row. So we'll see people that say, well, the hero RB doesn't work. They draft, let's just say hypothetically, Bijan Robinson at the 6th overall pick. They draft maybe 2 wide receivers in a row, 3 wide receivers in a row, and then they're backfilling like 3 or 4 running backs between round 6 and 8. You're applying a draft strategy to avoid a certain area of running back production, and then you're completely just flipping the advantage you built at wide receiver to backfill at running backs that don't have the elite league-winning upside, I'll get into in a second, that you need from the running back position. If you're going to do hero RB properly, you want to be 1 running back shy of a true zero RB through 8 rounds. I think people sometimes get confused. They, start drafting running backs again too early. The easy way to think about it is that you are deviating for RB2 archetypes if you're drafting them in the dead zone over the elite wide receiver prospects in this range.
Yeah, and you only start deviating once you're strong everywhere else. Once you have, 4 wide receivers or 5 wide receivers, maybe an elite quarterback, maybe both, maybe an elite quarterback and an elite tight end. I think the perception of hero RB is less contentious than zero RB because you are still getting one shot at one of those, legendary upside guys. But I also do think it is more universally applicable as a strategy than zero RB, because in the zero RB video, we talk about using it as a tool in your toolbox, something that you can pivot to if you're in an extremely running back heavy home league atmosphere where everybody's so excited about drafting as many running backs but hero RB can be used virtually in every draft room. It will definitely be more effective if everybody in your league's obsessed with running backs, but you definitely can still use it in underdog drafts or in more sharp rooms where you're still going to get solid values at wide receiver, at quarterback, and at tight end. So I'll let you break down kind of why we only take one shot in a hero RB and why we at least want to take one shot in the legendary upside theory that Pat Carrane always breaks down.
The reason why we run a hero RB is to follow the same basic principles about the zero RB draft strategy, but try and get access to a running back profile that we think can have legendary upside. If you guys are unfamiliar with that term, legendary upside, as put by Pat Carrane, is a player that exceeds a 20+% win rate in fantasy football. We want access to the backs that can break fantasy football without the opportunity cost of sending, multiple redundant shots in the dead zone, which rarely produces these type of profiles. So you guys can see that you already mentioned that running back backs bust at a higher rate than wide receivers do, but Pat Kerrane actually broke it down, and wide receivers and running backs in terms of league winner rate, 13+% win rate, are pretty much even across the board. You'll see the running back position versus the wide receivers. Wide receivers actually outpace them in round 1, same as round 2, same as round 3, completely demolish them in round 4, the same as round 5, and then they're about even come round 6. The reason why we're trying to draft running backs is not to be the league winner 13+% win rate. We want the guys that can have a 20+% win rate, have special seasons named after them. You're thinking about the 2019 CMC year. You're thinking about the 2020 Alvin Kamara year. You're thinking about the 2017 Todd Gurley year. You need a running back that, if you're drafting them early, has legitimate 22, 23, 24, 25 plus PPR point per game upside. And you guys can see that this is the most valuable player in fantasy. If you have one of these players on your team, you're having, again, a near 3 times percent chance more to win your league just by rostering this guy. And I mean, a special season like Christian McCaffrey, for example, where he cleared 3% win rate. If you guys don't know how ludicrous that is, a normal win rate, 12-man league, 8.3%. So if you're getting to 30 just by rostering Christian McCaffrey that year, you nearly quadrupled your chances of winning your home league. So in a Hero RB, your goal is to take a back, not based on their median production, but based on how high a ceiling you think they possess. If running back 1 overall isn't in their range of outcomes, you have to bypass for an option that does possess that elite legendary upside, in my opinion.
Yeah, because like you said, with the legendary win rate, yeah, running backs can outproduce wide receivers in terms of the wins above replacement if you hit on them big. But relatively speaking, like league winner rate, 13% win rate is similar through running backs and wide receivers in the first 3 rounds. But the advantage running back has is after the first 3 rounds, you're not really getting that legendary rate. In the early rounds, you are getting that legendary rate, and wide receivers can't really give you that at a high level. So what you need to do is, if you're going to take a shot in a Hero RB, make sure that shot is rounds 1 to 3, because we have not seen a legendary running back come from in the running back dead zone rounds 4 to 6, rounds 4 to 7. So if you're going to take your deviation, you're going to take your one shot, it probably should be in the first round, the second round, or maybe the third round if some of these guys slide to you like we're seeing this year. So in scoring format purposes, we'll just break this down real quick, and then we'll get into the mock draft and actually show you guys how Hero RB is executed. I'll be drafting from like the middle of the first round. Danny will be drafting from the early portion of the first round. But like Hero RB is definitely more effective the more wide receivers you can start and the more bonuses attributed to wide receivers. Full PPR leagues where you can start 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes, that allows you to win those wide receiver spots and those flex spots by going light on running back early, and you can gain an advantage that way, thus minimizing the blow that having a weak RB2 has to your roster. In a Hero RB, it definitely benefits you to have all those flex spots available, because you can still, execute a Hero RB in a format where you have 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, but it definitely is more effective in a format where you can start a bunch of wide receivers. Maybe you have a super flex format or tight end premium format that make those other positions more valuable. So those are kind of the scoring format nuances of Hero RB. Again, unlike Zero RB, you can deploy it in a bog standard bare bones format, but it definitely is more effective the more bonuses and the more starting roster spots that you have. So again, as we did with the Zero RB video, let's put this actually into practice and show you guys what a Hero RB mock draft looks like. All right, so we are now into the draft. Like I said, Danny will be drafting from the 1 slot, executing a Hero RB. I will be drafting from the 7 slot, executing a Hero RB. We're going to break down like the best draft strategies from each draft slot. I would say middle of the round and early in the round are probably the best for the Hero RB strategy, but we will break that down probably next week or so. As far as roster construction of these drafts that we're doing this as a sample for, Danny, if you want to go to the roster there, we have 1 quarterback slot, 2 wide receiver slots, 2 running back slots, and 2 flexes, and then a bunch of benches and a tight end slot. So we will break down the first 8 rounds of this mock draft overall, and then skim to the end and kind of show you how we backfill our running back position late in the draft. So Danny, if you want to hit the start draft button, we can get this thing going.
Yeah, and with the first overall pick, as you guys would expect, Justin Jefferson is both of our first overall player. And although we're going with a Hero RB, this is going to be a little bit modified. I'm going to be taking my hero at this 2-3 turn and seeing what access to the running back profiles I do have at that spot. So Justin Jefferson, I can't pass on him for any other running back in fantasy football.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. And exactly what I wanted to happen happened. My RB1 and 2 did not go off the board because I have Bijan Robinson over both Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler. In a standard home league, I would imagine McCaffrey and Eckler might actually go off the board. If you guys are picking in this mid-first round area, the 1-6, the 1-7, the 1-8, you should have access to Bijan Robinson. I'm going to probably be taking him a lot higher than this, but if you were picking in this area, you should be able to get him. So for me, access to that legendary upside running back profile. I get a guy that, high end draft capital going to a really rush heavy offense, a guy that can get 3-down workload as much as, Algier and Patterson are going to factor in. I think they spent the 8th overall pick on this running back for a reason. So now he is my hero, right? He is the guy that is going to anchor my team. I have an absolute gift sitting in front of me with Amon-Ra St. Brown sitting on the board. I have him ranked in the first round.
Yeah.
But a lot of, some of these picks here with Mahomes going off the board, Barkley, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, in your casual home leagues, you're going to see some of these players go ahead of a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think his profile is absolutely ironclad. He's got 170 plus target upside as a third-year receiver. We just saw him have a monster breakout season. Give me Amon-Ra there at the 2-6, and I'm going to probably continue to backfill some wide receivers here in the next couple picks.
Yeah, so I'm back on the clock here, and I just quickly want to take a look at who my next highest rated running back would be at this spot, because I do have a couple guys in this tier. Now, obviously, you can make the case for a guy like Josh Jacobs. If we're talking straight upside, we saw he was able to produce 19.3 PPR points per game last year, 24 PPR points per game when Darren Waller was out of the lineup. So definitely a strong bet there if I do decide to go with Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs is actually my highest rated running back left. I get the risk at this point, regardless of whether he's going to play week 1 or not. But upon doing the Truth Series and going through just how dominant Jacobs was from a workload standpoint, over 26 opportunities per game in that stretch, and overall as a receiver, which I didn't expect, commanding targets, of course, in addition to being one of the best rushers in the league. If I'm talking about picking a running back with a lot of upside, despite, the medium projection not really being there given the holdout case, Josh Jacobs has the upside to be a top, 6 overall running back, top 3 overall running back like he was last year. So getting that at the 212 to pair with Justin Jefferson, more than fine with it. And then I'm also going to be pairing that with my best rated wide receiver here, which would be Calvin Ridley. So starting off with 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds to make sure I don't fall behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and again, this video is not necessarily the most player focused. So if you had gone with Ramondre Stevenson instead of Josh Jacobs, or Breece Hall instead of Josh Jacobs, and then you didn't want Calvin Ridley, you wanted Devontae Smith instead, that's fine. It's really all about the roster construction that we're trying to, hammer home with this video. So again, another gift falls to me with T. Higgins available on the board. Also, Mark Andrews available on the board as well. I'm honestly interested to see how this goes, because I can start up to 4 wide receivers. I think I'm going to favor the falling value in T. Higgins here. So starting off my draft, Bijan Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and T. Higgins. I feel very confident that I'm getting a bunch of guys here so far that can really anchor my roster. We do see Andrews and Lamar and Burrow go off the board. Coming back to me here, we have Justin Fields as the best available quarterback. I think I'm probably going to bypass quarterback yet again. And see what comes back to me at the 5-7. I think I should be able to get one of Fields, Herbert, Lawrence, somebody like that there in the 5th round. So for me, I look back at the wide receiver position again in the running back area. Kenneth Walker's not a terrible pick here, but again, we're kind of in this running back dead zone area. We don't really want to be deviating, especially knowing that we're running a hero RB. So Amari Cooper, I believe, would be my highest rated wide receiver. Another guy that I have access to a very, very high end ceiling in terms of a target share. So give me Amari Cooper there. If Deshaun Watson takes a step forward, he goes back to his 2020 ways, then we have a guy that could finish his highest in his career so far. So Danny on the board here at 412 gets sniped on a couple tight ends. What are you thinking here?
Not worried about the tight ends, because I'm going to sprint to the podium and get 2 players that would be my highest rated at their positions left. So Justin Fields would be my quarterback 4 overall. So getting him here at the 412, I'm more than comfortable with doing that. Now, wide receiver, I was praying he would make it back, but Jerry Jeudy is a guy I'd be comfortable taking at that 3-4 turn area, and getting him at the 4-5 is just that bit of value I needed.
Yeah, exactly. So through 5 rounds, both of us have, our anchor wide receivers, our anchor running backs. You have an elite onesie in Justin Fields. I now have an elite onesie because Justin Herbert fell back to me. So he's going to be my pick there. Hopefully, maybe in the next round, I can pair him with his teammate Mike Williams or something like that to fill out my final wide receiver slot. So I'm liking the roster construction so far. I would say relative to the 0 RB video, my draft is going a little bit better, and I'm kind of the fruits of my labor here. So 6-6, Darren Waller comes into play for sure. I think at tight end, he is somebody that I'm absolutely okay with. given the upside that he potentially has. The real only case you can say against Darren Waller is the fact that he's older and he's a little bit more injury prone. And that's definitely a reason that he could bust from a fantasy perspective. But I do think at the 6'6", you're getting real good access to a guy that could be among the top guys at his position. However, Chris Godwin is still on the board. So Chris Godwin is going to be the guy that I go with. If Chris Godwin was gone, I absolutely would have gone with Darren Waller there. But to me, getting 4 wide receivers in St. Brown, Higgins, Cooper, and Godwin, who I can lock into basically a 25% plus target share. St. Brown, Higgins, and Cooper play on better offenses than Godwin, but I think with Godwin, you saw the target earning potential pretty much on one leg last year for the Buccaneers.
I was pumping my fist when you passed on Mike Williams, thinking you would make it back to me, and then Team 3 was just not having it in the cards. Team 3 knew I wanted Mike Williams, knew that he was my highest rated wide receiver, and just said, hey, you know what? Guess what? My wide receiver 3. So I'm back on the clock here at the 6'12", 701 turn. Could look at tight end. Could go with a guy like Darren Waller. That would probably be my next rated tight end. Wide receiver, you got guys like Michael Pittman, Christian Kirk, Mike Evans. If you want to go young, JSN. There's a few of the rookie wide receivers still available, so I might bypass that and hope one falls back to the 8-12. So if I'm looking at running back, could deviate towards Javonte, but I will stick to a true hero. So I will look towards the tight end position. I will go with Darren Waller with one of these picks, and then I'll grab another wide receiver here with one of them. And my highest rated rookie would actually be Jordan Addison. So I'm comfortable taking him here at the 7-1.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think given that you deviate for Jordan Addison over one of the safer options, quote unquote, like a Michael Pittman or a Mike Evans, you're probably going to prioritize another wide receiver here in the next 2 rounds so that if Jordan Addison maybe for whatever reason isn't on the field right away, KJ Osborne's beating him out for routes or something like that, you'll have a guy there. I personally probably would have gone with a guy knowing that you can start up to 4 wide receivers. I probably would have gone with Mike Evans or Michael Pittman in your spot and, hoped that QJ or somebody made it back to me at the later portion there. So I'm back on the board. Mike Evans actually fell to me, which sucks because I have Godwin already, and I might not go in that direction. We are outside of the RB dead zone, and honest to God, I just can't pass on Javonte Williams at this price tag. So I'm going to take Javonte Williams. We have a guy who is my RB2 archetype, who's risky for sure because he's coming off of a blown ACL, but he's hit pretty much every checkpoint that we need to do. And I'm running a true hero RB here, technically, because it's the 7th round. But, for the purposes of this, I just can't pass up on the value of a guy that legitimately could give me RB1 production, assuming he's healthy. And every indication so far in camp is telling us that he is healthy. He's going to play in preseason games. He's not, limited in contact or anything like that. So, yeah, Javonte Williams, a pretty good deviation there. And then I am staring in the face 2 very difficult decisions because I have Justin Herbert. So I could stack him up with his rookie wide receiver, Quentin Johnston, or I could go with a tight end that I believe in with Pat Freiermuth, David Njoku, or somebody like that. I do think I'm going to take. Oh, this is difficult, man. I'm gonna grab Quentin Johnston just because I only have 4 wide receivers so far. I have a couple safe archetypes like Cooper and like Godwin and Higgins, so I think I can afford to take a risk here on a guy like Quentin Johnston. Danny probably wanted him to fall there, but I think I can fill up my tight end spot with one of those guys in the next round and bypass him for QJ here. So after Danny makes his pick, we're going to skip to the end of this draft and we'll talk about how we filled out our running back and wide receiver cores at the end there. Unfortunately, both tight ends go off the board, so it doesn't look like one of them is going to come back to me.
For reference, I would have taken Javonte at the 7-1, but I wanted to stay closer to the nature of the video. But it's all good because I'm looking at the board here. Could go with a guy like, Penny, Charbonnet for early point production. But realistically, I want to get another wide receiver to fill through my flex. And Brandon Cooks here, I think, is a really good value at the 8-12. You're obviously getting access to a really good offense. I know bias is at hand here. You guys see the jerseys in the back, but I do think Brandon Cooks can supplement that wide receiver 2 role on an offense that desperately needed another body with Michael Gallup struggling to come back from his knee injury last year. You're getting Brandon Cooks. Obviously, Dak Prescott, very good quarterback. He could work on that 3rd level of the field. So for me, Brandon Cooks, I feel like, especially with Jordan Addison potentially, maybe not getting the snaps early on, a guy like Brandon Cooks can give you, 15 PPR points per game, hypothetically, for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year. So I'm fine with that pick. And then at the 9-1, could go with another wide receiver. I could take my first running back. And you know what? I think I will mix in a back. Just looking at the landscape of the board. Yeah, I will actually mix in Rashad Penny here. You're basically the bet there is you're getting access to a very, very talented runner on what should be one of the top offenses with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense there. So I'm on the board here at the 9-7. Again, I have not taken a tight end yet. So in a true hero RB, ideally you want to be kind of like strong at all these positions, have your anchor running back. But I did end up kind of deviating for Javonte Williams there at the 7-7. So I am a little bit weaker at tight end than I would like to be, but I didn't really have any tight ends on the board outside of Waller at the 6-6 there that I was comfortable with. And honestly, at tight end, between Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, Dalton Kincaid, Greg Dulcich, I actually like a couple of those options. So I'm going to punt tight end yet again to the 10-6, and hopefully one of those guys falls back to me. And I'm going to grab probably another wide receiver here just because I do have QJ, who's like a little bit of a risky bet. I'm going to grab another guy who's pretty volatile in Gabe Davis, who I think I can fill into my flex spot if I need to for bye weeks, for injuries, for, if somebody is not performing at the highest level, maybe Godwin's not performing at the highest level because the Bucs offense is a train wreck at the beginning of the season. So I'll grab Gabe Davis there. He can fill into my flex if I need him to. And the guy that I was hoping fell back to me did in Greg Dulcich, a guy that I think has a very, very clean projection to take a big step forward. One of the few rookie tight ends we've really seen burst onto the scene and get high route participation while competing for targets with Alberto. The offense was so dog shit in Denver last year that we didn't notice, but we do see Greg Dulcich actually get a big portion of the routes there.
Yeah, and the final pick I will make prior to, skipping to the end of this video is that I'll take Damien Harris, similar type of philosophy to me taking Rashad Penny, just getting a talented runner and what should be a very, very good offense with potential goal line opportunity there with Damien Harris. So like we were saying, you'll see us next when the draft is complete, and we'll just give you the overview of our team. So,
all right, so we have completed the draft. I'll go over my team, and then Danny can go over his. Again, we're running Hero RB. So, again, back to the beginning of this video, you want one running back through the first 7 or 8 rounds. I decided to break the rules a little bit because Javonte Williams ended up sliding to me at the 7-7. But the whole purpose of this video kind of remained true. Bijan Robinson's my anchor. I fill out my wide receivers through the flex with Amon-Ra St. Brown, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Quentin Johnson, and Gabe Davis. So this gives me 6 very strong wide receivers. I go, 7 wide receivers through the first 8 rounds or whatever, or 5 wide receivers through the first 8 rounds. And then I grab myself an elite onesie and Justin Herbert. To me, I didn't see a huge difference between a Pat Freiermuth type, a David Njoku type, and a Greg Dulcich. So I punt my tight end position down to the 10th round and get myself a guy that I think can be solid, probably not an elite ceiling, but a guy that I think could be a top 6 tight end. And then I grab a bunch of archetypes later on in the draft. If Javonte Williams, who is currently my RB2, has RB1 upside, doesn't hit, let's say he's, deals with what J.K. Dobbins dealt with, he needs a cleanup procedure or something like that, I have a bunch of upside swings in Kendre Miller and Tank Bigsby. Jeff Wilson can be kind of my steady veteran that I could plug into my lineup, worst case scenario. And then another upside swing in rookie Tajay Spears. Between my running back archetypes behind Bijan Robinson, I think I feel confident in my ability to fill out RB2 production and potentially RB1 production with some of these upside swings that I have here.
Yep, 100%. And with my team, I'll scroll down in a second once I get to my later picks. But you guys can see, start off with Justin Jefferson, Josh Jacobs, Calvin Ridley. Basically, we see here 5 wide receivers through the first 8 rounds, which is a typical for a hero RB. Also implementing the fact that I get a quarterback that I trust that can be an elite advantage at his position. Same with tight end. With Darren Waller, we've already heard the reports. He has the opportunity to be the number 1 overall weapon there in New York. So getting that level of target earning upside at the tight end position in the 6-12 area is very nice. So theoretically, through those first 8 rounds, for doing the math here, my quarterback's going to be Justin Fields. My tight end's going to be Darren Waller. I got Josh Jacobs as my main running back 1. And then my wide receivers through my flexes will be wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 2, Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 3, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 4, Jordan Addison, with Brandon Cooks being my first off the bench. So this is basically the blueprint for how you would start a zero or a hero RB draft, where you get the 1 access to a running back 1 profile with Josh Jacobs, and then you're making every single other spot in your lineup elite. From there on, because I already got that structure, now it's time to try and hit on my running back 2. Rashad Penny, I already mentioned it. Rashad Penny and Damien Harris, I already mentioned why I took them. Lead offenses, goal line opportunity there, maybe, punch in 10, 11 touchdowns on what should be good teams. With Elijah Mitchell, I've already talked about how he's one of my highest owned running backs in fantasy football. I talked about it on the video with Ron, but basically the premise there is I'm off of Christian McCaffrey in the early portion of the draft, like him going 2-3 overall. I am completely off of him. And I saw last year that when Elijah Mitchell was healthy, he actually commanded more red zone touches in those same games than Christian McCaffrey did. So for me personally, you're getting a little bit of a standalone role. And if anything were to happen to McCaffrey, he's got the upside not only to fill my RB2 hole, but potentially be a second running back one in my lineup, which will make me even more dominant. So take him, take another wide receiver for depth here, my 6th overall wide receiver with Nico Collins, who has the opportunity to be the number 1 on that Houston Texans team, and then fill up with Roschon Johnson, ambiguous backfield, rookie running back, a lot of talent, big body that can fill that between the tackles role there, and Gus Edwards. We've already talked about the premise of J.K. Dobbins' knee when you talked about Javonte Williams. Gus Edwards shown he's one of the most efficient backs in the NFL when he's healthy and on the field for the Ravens. So the premise there is if J.K. Dobbins is holding out, if J.K. Dobbins is, not fully ready to go to start the year, then you got Gus Edwards there ready to take that role.
Yeah, and absolutely. If you had not gone Jordan Addison there at the 7-1 and you would have gone with Michael Pittman instead, that's totally fine. Again, the whole point of this video was to execute the strategy and talk about the roster construction and, what your main goals are. 1 running back through the first 7 to 8 rounds, get your elite onesies, fill your wide receivers through your flex, and then take your upside swings later on at ambiguous backfields, at rookie running backs. And we kind of outlined some of those guys, and we definitely will in the coming days release a video of your best late round running back shots, your best 0 RB targets, hero RB targets, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be implementing some of these strategies that we're talking about. So if you enjoyed the video, if you got some value from it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you guys are new around here, if you guys want to support us in any way, you can go down to the link in the descriptions. You can find all of our site content at flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FSC for 30% off over there. Get all of our dynasty rankings, trade value charts, redraft rankings. Everything that you could want is over there on Flock Fantasy. And if you want our redraft rankings manifesto 2.0, you can get it for just $10 when you sign up on Underdog Fantasy right now. If you sign up on Underdog Fantasy with $10, you'll get our Redraft Rankings Manifesto 2.0, which has all of our positional rankings, all of our tiers, the Truth Series, FSC versus Consensus, home league sites like Yahoo, NFL, Sleeper, Underdog, all the sites that you guys are playing on. You can get that for just a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy if you guys are first-time depositors. And also, if you guys do that, you'll also get our weekly rankings throughout the season to help you out with your start-sit decision. So if that interests you, all that is linked down below. If you guys want access to our new listener league, you'll also get an entry in that by getting our manifesto and also an extra sign up if you sign up on our site as well. So everything linked down below in the description and in the pinned comments. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.